You're with Em and Warren on Joy Drive.
Theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive with Em and Warren.
Good afternoon, Suzy Wrong.
Good afternoon, Warren. So nice, as always, to be here with friends on a Tuesday afternoon.
It is. We really look forward to it. Now, did you watch CHRISSY, JUDY, which is part of the Melbourne Queer Film Festival? And if so, what did you think?
Hilariously, if she says no. Like, hilarious if it's a no. I just gave you homework, but no, I actually haven't watched it.
Yeah, well, why don't you tell me about it? Well, the Melbourne Queer Film Festival is underway, and today we are talking about the American film CHRISSY, JUDY, which is screening on the 17th and 19th of November. CHRISSY and JUDY are best friends, two gay men who are thick as thieves living an existence of wild abandonment in New York City. That is, until CHRISSY decides to leave town and get serious about life. JUDY is then left in a lurch. Between a career in drag that is going nowhere and a meaningless string of parties and boys, JUDY finds himself in a state of confusion and angst. Perhaps he too needs to grow the hell up. The role of JUDY is played by Todd Flaherty, who also writes and directs the film. Flaherty is certainly talented and easy on the eye, but I'm not sure if many will find the character likable. And that's a problem, as our attention is focused on JUDY for the entirety. It is, however, a valuable portrait of contemporary gay life as experienced by white cis men in the Western world. Homophobia has become a very peripheral concern, especially for the young, and now it seems they have nothing to blame but themselves if things are still not going well. We can interpret CHRISSY, JUDY as a millennial story involving characters living in a disappointing world with little that inspires excitement or ambition. I appreciate being able to watch a gay film where being gay is no longer a problem, and CHRISSY, JUDY represents this new generation with some accuracy. Their characteristic listlessness, however, is not particularly engaging. For a small independent film, I do think that the production values are great. It is black and white, which is a sort of New York signature, and still holds a certain charm. Cinematography, editing, and the score are all accomplished with impressive proficiency, which ultimately makes the film an easy watch. This is not the first time that you hear a Gen Xer complaining about millennials being annoying, but I do concede that CHRISSY, JUDY is pretty well made. I wonder if young Emily has a greater sense of affiliation with it.
I do not. But sorry to put it so bluntly, but I do not. I don't understand the black and white choice to start. Like you mentioned, Suzy, that it's like a New York style, is it?
Yeah, I feel like through the decades, most notably, I guess the Woody Allen films have that, that black and white quality.
But I just don't understand how that value adds to this movie in particular. Like I understand it as a stylistic choice and an artistic choice, but like fundamentally with this film, I'm like, honestly, what difference does it make that it's in black and white? And if it's because of the like old, the fact that CHRISSY presents this kind of like old worldy, like older show tunes sort of thing in the performance aspect of this movie, sure. But I almost want those to be black and white and the rest of the film not to be black and white. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's a budget thing. I'm not sure. I do feel like, it does remind me of a canon. What was that from Francis something a few years ago? Similarly. Okay. Anyway, aside from the choice of doing it in black and white, so it sounds like you have a problem with the lead character JUDY as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I do. I think, you touched on it in your thoughts, Suzy, where you said, it's a portrayal of a cis white gay man and gay men, and I felt like there were some tropes that were like a little bit, how would I say, like maybe stereotypical?
It's so stereotypical.
Yeah. We didn't get depth in the characters and, motivation and anything like that. I didn't feel like I connected with either of the leads.
Yeah, I think JUDY was performed with a sort of frothiness, which maybe it reads as stereotypical, but I feel like that was the essence of what they were trying to portray. I mean, I don't know if and certainly not all millennials think of themselves that way, but I do feel like the film leaves me with an impression that this generation has a certain lightness that accompanies sort of like a hopelessness about the world.
Yeah, it's really interesting because one thing I really like about the Melbourne Queer Film Festival is we get, and we spoke about this last week, we get to see ourselves portrayed on screen, and it's really, really important. But, you know, Suzy and Em, I started watching CHRISSY, JUDY, and I did not see myself being portrayed on screen in any way. I found it really stereotypical, and something that really annoys me. If we're on Grindr, you can say you're a top or you can say you're a bottom or whatever you are, okay? It's there for a purpose. Do we need to define that at the beginning of a film and start talking about it? There's more to us than just being defined by our sexual position, and I've said that before, and it just annoys me when films just start off with that and start talking about it. And then we've got the drag show, and it's a bitchy drag show, and she starts attacking someone who's reading a book in a pub. Like, for goodness sakes, I'm sick of us being portrayed as either just, you know, we're tops or bottoms or we're nasty, bitchy drag queens, and that's it.
It's interesting you've taken that perspective because the film goes on to try to define the character or the person. Judy tries to find himself because his best friend is no longer there, and he almost fails to. I guess he does fail to. Like that, there's no person in there aside from that really, shallow character that we see. And it makes it sort of a frustrating watch, I suppose, that I can hear very clearly in your voice, Warren. But I don't feel like it's inaccurate, you know. I feel like there are lots of people in our community who sort of float by a bit like that. And so in that way, I do give it props for not trying to create depth where there might not be. But it makes the viewing of it a little bit pedestrian, maybe.
Yeah, I will say I appreciated the character development, you know, even if, but just a little bit. And it was also quite superficial, and I don't want to give too much away, but, you know, something happens to Chrissy's name and it gets, you know, a revamp. And I thought that was like quite, I guess, a good representation of the journey that character had been on. Like that, I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. It does sound like you have learned something. You've learned something about, you know, who you're trying to portray on stage and what that means to you. So I thought that was kind of like a nice way of showing character development.
But also, it's good to see our friendships, you know, gay friendships on screen as well. But, I mean, would you go and sabotage your friends because they were meeting someone who they've fallen in love with?
Well, don't you think it happens all the time?
Well, maybe it happens sometimes, but I don't know. To me, it just portrayed us as being nasty, bitchy people.
Yeah, I did think that because the film is sort of done all by one person, like, you know, if it's being performed by someone and it's directed by someone else, maybe the director will take more care in making that character a bit more likable. But I think the actor is directing himself, and maybe he's trying to present something that feels authentic. And to me, it feels real. I feel like I've met these people many times, or that person many times. The problem with authenticity in this case is you kind of go away feeling a little bit, I don't care for this person.
I think it's a good reminder that, you know, we can get stuck in life spinning our wheels and forget that, you know, sometimes we need to stop and enjoy life. And maybe that means taking a break from whatever we're doing or people in our lives or something like that. I thought that was a good thing in the film, a reminder, but I just didn't identify with them at all.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted him to discover some substance in his life, and we waited 90 minutes for him to find some substance, and we kind of don't really know if he did, but he was certainly on the way, because like he felt the repercussions of suddenly being left alone in the city where he had, you know, relied a lot on his best friend. But the problem being it kind of didn't really click, and that's sad to see. And you know, it happens to to people all the time, you know. I'm sure it's happened to us. And, you know, obviously we'd like to think that we figured things out eventually. But for the duration of the film, it feels like the character didn't quite figure things out.
Yeah, I think that's it, right? And it's kind of like you're sitting there going, please, you know, we want this for you.
Not this again. Come on.
Do you think that, you know, this portrayal of your generation, how does that make you feel, seeing your generation being presented this way?
I mean,
I assume you're not talking to me.
No, not you.
I mean, it kind of is, I guess. You know, I feel like, yeah, I mean, I can't speak for my entire generation, but I do feel like we, you know, see value in not just like sticking to one thing from the very beginning. And a lot of us are like pursuing the things that we are passionate about, even if it means that we work 3 jobs and one of them's really, you know, or most of them are unfulfilling. But I guess the way in which, you know, I don't know. I could relate to some of it.
I think your generation would look at us and think that, we don't want to follow in their footsteps. I do understand that. And so in that way, I look at the film and I think, yeah, I guess if you don't follow in our footsteps, then your life is pretty much like that. You just kind of light and frothy and, you know, you don't want to commit to anything and because everything is not worth committing to. I think there is some truth to that. And that is sort of a conundrum of modern life.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it showed us that.
You should see Em's face.
It's a valid point.
The film is called CHRISSY, Judy. It is screening as part of the Melbourne Queer Film Festival. Suzy, what are we watching next week?
Billy Eichner's Bros has been making news for months now, so I thought we should finally take some time and take a look at it. It's screening at cinemas everywhere in Sydney, Melbourne, etc., but also in the Melbourne Queer Film Festival on the 20th November. Go to mqff.com.au for details. That's Bros, B-R-O-S.
Suzy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.
Indeed, that's Suzy Wrong, our TV, film and theatre reviewer. More Suzy every Tuesday here on Joy Drive.